And the topic is God's qualifications, heaven requirements. The question is, do we meet the requirements? This is not a, um, a rebuke. This message is to encourage and enlighten us to stay focused on our destination point rather on the things on the journey. Because we know we are faced with everything nowadays, coming from every angle of our life. We are busy, very busy. I was speaking to co-pastor a couple of days ago, and I'm like, what happened to time? It's like we get up, we go to work, we come home, and it's time to go to bed. By the time you get home, dinner it's not time for that. So this is just to encourage us, regardless of what's going on around us, is to keep our eyes focused on the prize. And I would think that every Christian's goal is to make it to heaven. And that's our destination, is heaven. So that's where we have to stay focused. But in getting there, there's some requirements. And there's qualifications. The basic scripture, Ecclesiastes 12:13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. This is the whole duty of man. We associate the word fear as an unpleasant emotion caused by a sense of danger. The Nelson New NIV Bible Dictionary defines fear as being a feeling of reverence and respect. And in here, we speaking of reverence and respecting God, the things of God, is where we're facing. I was telling the Sunday school class a couple of weeks ago, when I was growing up, we referenced God so to the point, if it thundered outside, I'm from Texas, and you hear the thunder rolling. And when we would hear that thunder roll, my mother would shut off everything, TV, everything, be quiet. Why? It was saying God was speaking. God was speaking. Last Saturday, it was storming. I hadn't heard thunder roll in a long time. But my granddaughter was in the car with me, and she said, Momo, God is angry. I said, this coming out the mouth of a baby. I said, let me hurry get home. So we, I miss that rolling thunder. I miss that because it kept us kind of in check a little bit. We took and we threw out the baby with the bathwater because there was things that we would not do even in the house of God that now it does not matter. Just a couple of months ago, we heard that a pastor got killed in the pulpit. No reference to God and the things of God. Didn't used to smoke or drink on the church grounds. It doesn't matter anymore. God is taking us back. He said, go back to the basics. Even in Matthew 21:12, Jesus was upset and he drove the buyers and the sellers out of the temple because of disrespecting God's house. He rejected Cain's offering in Genesis 4:5 because it was no respect to what God said to him for him to offer. We find fear in certain things. Going to a certain neighborhood, we find fear. Wearing certain colors I'm not from here, but I understand there are colors and certain things that you can and cannot wear. Blues and reds and um, with Ravens, Ravens, Raiders colors. Y'all can tell I'm not a football person, but Raiders colors. Certain times we won't go outside. But God didn't expect for us to fear those things. Because according to Matthew 10 and 28 and Philippians 1:28, we should not fear man, for man could only kill our flesh. But God could take our soul. So we should fear God, respect. It's not to be afraid of God and what he would do to us, but reference him, respect him, honor him. There are 5 qualifications. The qualifications is to fear the Lord, to walk in obedience to him, to love him, to serve him, and to observe his commandments. Deuteronomy 10:12-13 says, "And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God has asked of you? But to fear the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to love him, to serve him, the Lord your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and to observe the Lord's commandments and decree that I am giving you today for your own good." The laws, God laws, are found in Leviticus chapter 17-26, and that's chapter 26. Although we are not, although we no longer under the law, we yet have to abide by the law. Although we sometimes when we drive and we don't see the police, but that doesn't mean that we can run the red light or the stop sign or we can speed, because there is a law. And that's the same thing with God. Although God put the law there, he never did away with the law. He never did away with it. And Romans 5:14-15 says, "For sin shall not have no dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid." God forbid. We can't do what we want to do. We can't go where we want to go. We are not our own. We was bought with a price. We owe a debt that we cannot pay. Because God gave his son, and his son gave his life. In Matthew's, and after that it says, Jesus came and stood in the gap for us. But God's word never changed. His word never changed. Matthew 5:17, Jesus said that I didn't come to do away with the law or the prophet. He came to fulfill requirements, and this is heavenly requirements. Execute true judgment. Show mercy and compassion to everyone. Meaning we don't have a certain person that we can show compassion and mercy to. God said everyone. Keep the commandments. So the commandments is forever before us. He told the Israelites, put them on the doorposts. Hang them around your neck. Teach them to our children so our children won't go against God. David said, Lord, I have hidden your word in my heart that I may not sin against thee. And Zechariah 7:9, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, execute true judgment. Don't say something false about our sisters or our brothers. That's something we also discuss in the sisterhood and bringing the sisters together. And if we come together, we could squash a lot of things. But when we stay apart, we allow things to circulate in our minds that's not necessarily true. and it shows mercy and compassion, every man to his brother. So these are the things that we have to do. Because if we don't stay in the word and under the word and have the word hidden in our heart, a lot of things are going to come against us. And we're not going to know who to run to because we're afraid that everybody's is talking about us or somebody going to shoo about something. It's not that serious. We got to get past this stuff. Our soul is at stake. Our soul is at stake. It's not, we see how the world is going. Everything, they taking everything about God out. If we don't hide it here, and so not just for us, but for other people to see, where will the world be? We are the light. And we're supposed to let our light so shine before men that they will see God's good work in us and begin to glorify and edify him. Some people only see us as the Bible. So we have to walk it. So the question is, do we qualify? And I'm yet speaking about God, and forgive me, God qualifications in heaven requirements. That's what we're speaking about. God's qualifications in heaven requirements. And it says, Deuteronomy 4:40, thou shalt keep thou for his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee this day, that it may go well with thee and with thy children after thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days upon the earth, which the Lord thou God giveth thee forever. We see nowadays children in the commandments. It says, children, obey thy parents, for your days will be long on the earth. We heard on the news just a couple of days ago, a young lady choose not to abide by her parents' rules. Now she's trying to sue them. What are we up against? What are we up against? Stand in the word, under his commandments. Under his commandments. Because it says, obey your parents. We have to set rules. We have to set standards. We have to stick by them. Although society is telling us we can't spank our kids and we can't do this and we can't do that. But what does the word of God says? What does God says? Then true holiness is love God with all your heart, understanding, soul, and strength. Love our neighbors as ourselves. Have no ill will towards our neighbor. Our neighbor doesn't have to be the person next door. It could actually be the person in our household. It could be the person we sleep with every night. It could be our children. It could be our brother. It could be someone here in the church. We got to get it right. We got to get it right. I remember when I met my father, his wife had passed. And I could just feel the anger and the animosity that he had towards her. And he would let me know, and I would say, Dad, you got to let that go. Because that's not going to get you into heaven. You have to let it go. But he carried that hurt. That hurt. And all I could do is pray, Lord, help him to forgive her. Help her to forgive. This woman was dead, graveyard dead, and yet had that kind of control. We have to let go. Tomorrow, the next day, is not granted to us. That's one of the things that I love about the women's Bible study, because we dealt with all that. Letting go. Letting go. And when we let go, guess what? God is able to move. We able to hear from God. He have us go to people and say, you know, I apologize. I feel this way. Maybe that's not what we want to do. And it's, you know, they always say somebody have to be the bigger person. It's not about being the bigger person. We don't have time for that anymore. Somebody have to step up and just say, you know what? You know, sister, I said something about you or thought something about you. Please forgive me. That's being a Christian. That's being holy. That's being like God. Because even when Jesus went up on that cross, he could have came down. All what they had done to him, all what they said about him, spit on him, the whole 9 yards. But the only thing he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's what we need to do. That's what we have to do. That's what we have to do, is forgive. Love our neighbors. Don't hold things against people. Sometimes people may walk by you and really, with everything going on in society and in people's household, none of us live together except for husband and wife and daughter and parents, children and parents. Other than that, we don't know what that other person dealt with. We don't know what they woke up to. They could have woke up to a phone call that just totally just shook their world and didn't know, and still didn't know how to handle it. But yet, we sitting, oh, well, you know, so-and-so didn't speak to us. Oh, they looked at me in a certain way. And I'm going to tell you, people, please, if you wave at me across the room and I don't wave back, it's not that I'm not being stuck up. If I don't have my glasses on, guess what? I really don't see you. I'm just like, and you could be waving. I had someone tell me, you know, I was waving at you and you just didn't speak. I say, when? I didn't even see the person. Didn't even know they was over on the other side of the room. But see, people get offended by stuff like that. We got to put away that kind of petty stuff. It's no room for that. We trying to get to heaven. We don't want nothing to hinder it. I know I don't want anything to hinder it. And yes, God deals with me all the time. Say, you need to go do, Lord, what? We got to die to flesh. He say, die to flesh daily. Dying to flesh daily is doing what we want to do, but not doing it. I want to tell this person how I truly feel, but God said, you don't need to do that. Love them. Have mercy on them. Show them compassion. Guess what? When I do that, my flesh just died. We can move on. It's time to move on. Get past the petty stuff. Deal with our issue. Nobody is our issue. We our issue. I recall my husband used to tell me, you your own self problem. We our own self problems. You know, because we let something fester and fester and festered, and that thing will fester out of control. And that person don't even feel that way, ain't even thought about it, but we done festered it all out of control. We done created our own little world and the whole 9 yards. It's time to get past it. We're looking at God qualifications, heaven requirements. I desire to go to heaven. I do not want to be in the church and look and close my eyes and I'm looking up. I don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. It's too hot in hell. It's too hot here. I can't deal with hell. It's too hot. Pastor taught a class about Revelation, and the whole time I was in there, I cringed. Because everything Revelation was talking about, I hated. I'm like, I'm not for bugs. I'm not for heat. It's too hot now. And women, if you're going through the change of life, you know it gets hot. And you can't do nothing about it. Guess what? Hell is even hotter. So we just have to look at God's qualifications. Focus on that. God qualification. What do God require of us? What requires us to get into heaven? That's our focus. As Christians, that should be our focus. That should be our walk. Yes, we all have problems. We all have issues. We all have shortcomings. But let's get past it. What we going to do about it? If you can't do anything about it, let it go. If you can't, change it and move on. And it says, visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction. We have to show love. Even if we don't know the person. It doesn't kill to pick up a phone sometime and say, I was just thinking about you. Especially if they lost someone. It means a lot. You don't have to stay on the phone. Just say hi. Think about them. Send them a card. Then it says to keep ourselves clean from the world. And that's in my interpretation. Meaning we cannot do what the world does. We can't. It said don't commit adultery. I'll keep it there to stay clean. But we can't do the things that the world does and that the world allows. We can't do it because we're set apart. When we accepted Christ into our life, we were set apart. We no longer do those things because the old man has passed away. And behold, guess what? All things become new. So if all things become new, that means our thinking becomes new. Our heart becomes new. Because what we should have allowed God to circumcise our heart. Pull that foreskin back and circumcise our heart. And that's a whole different topic. But this is what that's God's requirements. And this is what God gave to me when we did the Daniel fast. And I said, okay, Lord, I jotted it down. I wrote it. And I said, Lord. And I took it for me because it comes to me first. And I said, Lord, I need to line up. Because, see, tomorrow is not granted. 2 years ago, I lost a niece at the age of 35. And I was like, wow, wouldn't have expected that. My mother, 92, I would have expected that. But my mom outliving my niece, I was like, Lord, I have to get this thing right. I can't play church. Tamala Man, she say, I'm tired of playing church. It's no time. We on a schedule. We on actually, when we in a job, sometimes we have deadlines. We don't know when the deadline is going to come. It may come tonight. It may come tomorrow. It may come next week. It may come next year. It may come 50 years from now. We don't know. But we can't take a chance. And in those 5 things that I gave to you about true holiness, the supporting scriptures are Mark 12:33, Romans 13:10, James 1:27. You have heard the conclusion of the whole matter of God's qualifications and heaven requirements.